have a list of solutions that are needed right now, immediately, based on what we're hearing from Northern residents.
Tonight, in a rare move, the provincial ombudsman is speaking out for evacuees in Saskatchewan.
Registration under the Indian Act plays a central role in the recognition of First Nations people under Canadian law.
Canada's Auditor General's new report says the Indian Act status application is slow and inefficient, and the government needs to pick up the pace.
It's just a beautiful way of how they express themselves in the environment.
And a new exhibit in Yellowknife shows how a traditional art is evolving in the 21st century. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Saskatchewan's ombudsman is speaking out after public complaints were heard about the province's response to the wildfire crisis. She says numerous evacuees in Saskatchewan feel abandoned by their government. Sharon Prachtler says it's rare for her office to speak on provincial response issues during a crisis. She says immediate action needs to be taken to support evacuees during this traumatic time. She asserts that displaced evacuees wait for days to hear where they will be provided shelter and food. Some are hungry, sleeping in cars, and without access to their prescription medicines. Prachtler has given the province a list of over a dozen solutions to meet evacuees' basic needs. Her office will conduct a systemic investigation of the province's wildfire response, evacuation, and provided services.
As a legislative officer, my goal is to focus on solutions, not blame. We have a list of solutions that are needed right now, immediately, based on what we're hearing from Northern residents and other people who are reaching out to me. The solutions involve immediate responses and resources, and at least some information of the long-term solutions, even if they're not perfectly known at this time. People want to know what is going to happen to them. Are they going to have a place to live in the future? Are they going to have a community? Are they going to have a job?
Indigenous Services Canada, in its latest update, says as of today, June 10th, there are 25,814 individuals who have been evacuated from their homes due to wildfires. According to Indigenous Services Canada, 34 First Nations are currently evacuated because of wildfires. That includes 1 in British Columbia, 9 in Alberta, 6 in Saskatchewan, 14 in Manitoba, and 4 in Ontario. First Nations in Northern Ontario continue to express opposition to Bill 5, which passed last week at Queen's Park. Some, including Bearskin Lake First Nation, are calling for the resignation of Ontario Indigenous Affairs Minister Greg Rickford. For more, we're joined by Saul Mamakqua, the MPP for Kiiwetinoong. MPP Mamakqua, thanks so much for taking some time here for us. There have been a lot of statements released in the last couple of days over Bill 5, nation after nation, saying they strongly oppose the passage of the bill. The Ring of Fire has been talked about for like 2 decades. Why do you think the bill needed to be passed so quickly?
I think the Bill 5, Unleashing the Economy Act, was passed by this government on the intent of that, thinking that they would use the tariff war as an excuse to access the resources, the North. And I think, and they did that with no engagement, with no duty to consult with the people that live in these homelands, right? And I think it's important that to acknowledge that, because what it basically does, the approach that they're doing, and government continues to say that they honor and respect treaty rights, that they honor and respect First Nations, but when you look at the drafting of the bill, the way they've written it up, with no consultation at all, and then the way it's written, it's totally the opposite. So I think that's why it's again, you cannot use the tariff war to make an excuse to access the territories that we live in, the homelands that we live in. And I think that's the big issue. And it's almost like they don't even acknowledge honor or respect the enshrined the rights that we have as First Nations people, talking about, inherent rights, treaty rights, and, the rights that we have.
Niskantika First Nation, one of many, like I said, nations putting out statements. They're saying any attempt to fast-track mining and infrastructure development in their territory without their consent would be met by their people on the ground. How possible do you think it is that we'll see First Nations-led blockades?
I think since it's only not even a week since the bill was passed, so it's only been 5-6 days since it passed, and I can see on the calls that I've received from rights holders, First Nations, they're talking, they're organizing, and I think you will continue to see these kind of demonstrations, but I think you will continue to see, things elevated if there's no response, and I think that's the message I'm receiving, and that's something that that I tried to warn this government, this ministers, that they cannot again just do the way things are going now, and I think you will see this coming summer, you will see a lot of these demonstrations or direct actions.
There is a protest outside of the Ontario Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Greg Rickford's office in Kenora today. They're calling for his resignation, including others like the Ontario Federation of Labour also calling for his resignation. Do you support those calls? On the last day when we were sitting in the House, I think that's one of the things the Ontario NDP called for his resignation, because he's supposed to work with us on some of the legislation, and he's working against us, and it's almost like bringing back the old Indian affairs from 100 years ago, and that's how he's operating, and working against us, and it's something that I think he's lost the trust of First Nations, and you see it in these letters, and he's not welcome in some of these territories. They won't even acknowledge him. So I think that's what we're seeing, and that's the mistake that the Premier Ford needs to let him go, and because we need someone who can do a better job in representing us. MPP Mamakqua, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us.
All right, thank you for having me.
To Ottawa now, where Canada's Auditor General released a report on Indian Act status applications Tuesday morning. The report finds the existing government system cumbersome, slow, and inefficient. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Registration under the Indian Act plays a central role in the recognition of First Nations people under Canadian law.
But Auditor General Karen Hogan says the federal government is not living up to its end of the bargain. A report released at a press conference in Ottawa on Tuesday finds 80% of status applications took Indigenous Services Canada more than the 6-month standard to process. There's a backlog of more than 12,000 applications. And for First Nations who assist in the processing of applications, the funding formula has not been updated in 3 decades. The report finds there was an increase in status applications of about 58,000 between 2019 and 2024 due to amendments to the Indian Act, but it finds funding to ISC to process these applications has also increased. Either way, Hogan says there is no excuse for such long delays and backlog in processing.
Taking 16 months to make a decision is a long time for someone to be waiting to find out if they can access benefits that they have the right to under Canadian law. And I think many would ask themselves, if the Canadian Public Service can process an important document like a passport in a timely way, why can't they make a decision under the Registration Act in a timelier way?
Equally alarming is the lack of government resources invested in First Nations that are assisting ISC in processing applications. Almost 30% of First Nations with a community-based registration administrator receive only the minimum of $5,000 per year.
But part of reconciliation is to transition all of that to the communities, and without proper funding and then the ability to be proper trained, First Nations communities aren't going to be well equipped to take this on. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, not just about increasing the funding to these partners, but to also make sure that training and capacity is created before things are transitioned over.
In a press release, Indigenous Services Canada Minister Mandy Galmasti welcomes the report and says the department is making improvements such as moving to a digital application format and the introduction of legislation in the Senate to address remaining discriminations in the Indian Act. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We'd like to hear your feedback on that or any other story here. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to our website, aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Time for a quick break, but first, a look at something we're working on.
The fire was first reported on Monday afternoon and quickly spread to 5 hectares. As you can see behind me here, helicopters are battling from the air, trying to drop fire on the hotspots before it spreads further. With heavy winds happening right now and smoke blanketing the area, there's a lot of concern that this fire could grow rapidly. We'll have a full story for you tomorrow on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Just outside of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, the community of Betico has wrapped up its elections and has elected its first ever female chief. On Monday, the votes were in and Bertha Rabiska-Zoe beat incumbent Chief Clifford Daniels in a landslide with a final tally of 600 to 353 votes. The former chief executive officer of the Clecho government, Rebecca Zoe, said that as chief, she will address drug trafficking, security, and housing issues in Betico. After her win, her supporters had a drum dance in celebration, and she addressed the crowd with gratitude and reassured them that change is coming.
I want to assure people that change is good. It's not bad, it's good. That's how we move along. It's how you manage and you bring people with you when you make these changes. And so elders told me to take...
According to the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council, fire-related injuries and deaths are the 4th leading cause of unintentional injury worldwide. In partnership with Kidda, Firefighters Without Borders, and the Ganawage Fire Brigade, a community event focused on prevention, education, and the distribution of safety materials was held last week in Ganawage. APTN's Kim Sullivan has the story.
A new report entitled Circumstances Surrounding Fire-Related Deaths Among Indigenous People in Canada 2011 to 2020 showed that fire-associated morbidity and mortality were found to be significantly higher among Indigenous people when compared to non-Indigenous people.
As we look at the needs across the country, we learn that the Indigenous community, although they make only 5% of the population in the country, they make about 20% of the fire-related deaths. So nearly 1 out of 5 fire-related deaths is among the Indigenous community.
Without smoke detectors, our jobs would definitely be a lot more difficult.
Kidda and partners from the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council and Firefighters Without Borders were in the Mohawk territory of Ganawage in Quebec last week. They launched a pilot project aimed at turning things around. They are donating $400,000 worth of smoke alarms to 16 Indigenous communities across the country. 12% of fire-related deaths in Indigenous communities occurred in homes without working smoke detectors. Yvonette Bonilla is Chief Communications and Government Relations Officer of Kidda.
Because working smoke alarms can double the chances of you escaping a house fire safely. And every second counts. You only have about 2 minutes to escape a house fire, so it's really important to be prepared.
Hello.
The ultimate goal is to educate First Nations people to create safety leaders within communities and build long-term community resilience and allow for fire safety self-sufficiency.
As a fire inspector, public education is key. Nobody likes to be told what to do, plain and simple. So if you tell them what they need to do, but tell them why they need to do it, is a whole different ballgame. So having these smoke alarms here today will give us the opportunity to get into these households and say, look, this is why we're telling you, you need to make sure you check your smoke alarms.
Ganawage is the only Quebec Indigenous community in this launch initiative. A total of 504 smoke detectors have been donated and will be installed here.
Encourage everyone to come down and put your name in to get on the list to receive one of these smoke detectors.
Not only are smoke alarms donated through this pilot project, but installation demonstrations take place within the communities and culturally sensitive and adapted fire safety toolkits are distributed.
We were able to adapt the education based on the community's need, and so that's why it's taken us a long time to get here, but we're super excited, especially when it's Indigenous History Month, to kick off the program. But we'll learn, we'll adapt, we'll evolve, and hopefully we can continue to build on the program for years to come.
It is impossible to tell if a functional smoke detector was in this Ganawage residence that burned down last week.
We couldn't tell. There was nothing left.
Fire Chief Stacy emphasizes the importance of having more than one smoke detector in the home, one on each floor and in each bedroom.
Fires develop fast. There's no way to know where they're going to start, how they're going to start, how fast they're going to grow. Having early detection systems like a smoke alarm is the only way to know. And I can't tell you how much, like a smoke alarm costs $10, $15. How much does your life cost? You know, you can't replace that.
Thanks to these detectors and tailored awareness efforts, this community, along with 15 others, will be better prepared and safer for years to come. Kim Sullivan, APTN National News, Ganawage.
Time for one last break. Still to come here tonight, a new exhibit on traditional and contemporary beadwork.
I think it's a form of legacy for families because each family would have their own designs and crests, and they would tell each other apart on the land.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. While fishing near MacArthur Falls, just northeast of Winnipeg, Jason Corshane was under the watchful eye of this eagle for almost 2 hours, possibly looking for an easy meal, but Jason didn't catch any fish. So thanks to Jason for sending that along, though. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, you can send your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 24 for Fredericton and Halifax. 4 with rain in Kuujjuaq, 12 and rain in Nain. 26 in Montreal, showers and 17 in Chibougamau. 17 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 25 in Ottawa. 22 with rain in Thunder Bay, 18 and showers in Sioux Lookout. 11 in God's Lake with rain, cloudy and 13 in Norway House. 19 in Winnipeg, rain and 21 in Dauphin. 23 with showers in Regina, 25 in Saskatoon. 22 in Meadow Lake, rain and 15 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, smoky and 23 for Peace River and Grand Prairie. Smoke and 24 in Edmonton, 28 in Lethbridge. 22 in Vancouver, 33 in Kamloops. Showers and 25 in Prince George, rain and 20 for Dease Lake. 20 in Old Crow, rain and 17 in Whitehorse. 17 in Yellowknife, sunny and 20 in Norman Wells. 4 with snow in Sax Harbor, 9 in Polituck. 8 in Chesterfield, 11 in Arviat. -1 with snow in Resolute, 3 in Igloolik. Our video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz went to the Yellowknife Museum's newest exhibit last week, featuring traditional and contemporary beadwork by Clecho Dene artist Matthew Vuxen. Listen in as they talk about all things beading and how traditional art is evolving in the 21st century.
So that's what that means, symbolism of that. And this is the electrocution chair.
Matthew Vuxen, a Clecho Dene artist based in Brantford, Ontario, gives a tour of his new exhibition at Yellowknife's Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre. Titled At Sonatsili, or We Sew Beads, it showcases his traditional and contemporary beadwork from the past decade. From smaller designs to modern sculptures, every piece is woven with precision and has a story to tell.
There's also some heavier pieces, I call them tools of oppression. The concept behind that was about justice and also about how, you know, those objects were not here before contact period in North America, and so they would have been alien to the Indigenous people.
That story, that one means a lot to me because that's a real...
Traditionally, in Dene culture, beading is done by women, but that hasn't stopped Matthew from pursuing his art.
Traditionally, men were busy doing other things, right? Women are in the camps, and men would be on the land hunting, right, for survival so they could feed the family, so they don't have time to bead, right? But yeah, like in contemporary times, people pick up art, right? So
Matthew credits his mother, Celine Buxton, as one of his first teachers. Having been taught beading by her family, Celine shared the story of when Matthew decided to take a greater interest in this art form.
But then one day, he did ask me a question himself. He said to me, "What's going to happen, Mom, if my sisters don't pick up the beadwork? Maybe it wouldn't get passed down." And then he answered that question himself. I didn't give him the answer. He said, "I guess I better learn how to do beadwork."
Matthew emphasizes the cultural significance beading has for Dene people and how family histories are threaded with each bead.
I think it's a form of legacy for families because each family would have their own designs and crests, and they would tell each other apart on the land. And you know, it's just a beautiful way of how they express themselves in their environment. So.
You gonna do a wedding dress?
I gotta find a bride first.
If you missed the opening ceremony, have no fear. We Sew Beads will be on display until December 2025 here at the Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre. For a full schedule, be sure to check their website at pwnhc.ca. Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Thanks, Bruce. Earlier this spring, an Inuit artist was awarded with the King Charles III Coronation Medal for her contributions to bringing international recognition to Inuit art. Shuvinai Ashuna is a third-generation Inuit artist based in Kingate, Nunavut. Her nearly 30-year career of creating contemporary Inuit art has earned her accolades like the Governor General Award for Visual and Media Arts in 2024, and now the King Charles III Coronation Medal. In a recent press release, Shuna gave her thoughts on receiving the medal. Quote, "It's something like a strange thing to get an award from the King of England. He probably hasn't seen my drawings, but I hope that someday he'll get to know what my art is all about." Congrats to her. And that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday, June the 10th. For news anytime, though, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And Creason will be here at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow to give you a first look at the day's news. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Stick around for an encore presentation of Face to Face. Have a great night.